Welcome to the Rescue, Rebuild, Restore podcast, where we equip church leaders and compassionate Christians to serve the hurting with spirit-led wisdom. I'm your host, Suzanne Burns, author of the book, Rescue, Rebuild, Restore, Compassion That Works. Together, we're going to explore how to rescue body and soul, rebuild spirit and will, and restore lives through the Holy Spirit's power. Because every person deserves to be seen, healed, and loved. Let's dive into today's episode and discover how to live out this calling. Hey, welcome back to the Rescue, Rebuild, Restore podcast. I'm so glad that you are here with us. This is the place where we take all of the trauma and brain science and addiction and mental health and poverty understanding and pull it all through the lens of the Christ, of the Bible, and really help the church world serve more effectively. Rescue, Rebuild, Restore, compassion that works. That's our goal here. And so today I wanted to introduce you to one of my dear friends, Tanya Joy. She is not only a survivor of domestic violence, but she is also now a published author about her experiences, but also about how she can help others who have lived through that similar experience. So Tanya, welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Why don't you give the audience just a little bit of your own personal background and kind of the story behind the story as we dive in?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much, Suzanne. I appreciate you having me. So I married the love of my life, and he was perfect for me because he saw me as who I truly was. He loved me for who I was. I didn't have to fit a certain mold or change for him. And I thought, oh, this is great. He sees me, he loves me. And we were married. And as time went on, I kind of noticed that he wanted to kind of keep me close. And so he kind of isolated me from family and friends. And it was so subtle that I really didn't notice it. And as things went on, he became a little more controlling, a little more manipulative. But as a woman of Christ, I just thought, oh, these are just the normal ups and downs in a marriage, right? Nobody's marriage is perfect. You're married for better or for worse. So there's good days, there's bad days. And so I just thought, okay, this is just normal, right? And as it went along, I was married for like 18 years and I was online and I read this little quiz about, hey, is your partner a narcissist? And I thought, that'd be interesting. Let me just take that. And he was like all 20 of the things in the quiz. And I was like, oh my gosh, my husband's a narcissist. Of course, I can't just diagnose him, but he fit all of the qualifications. And so I was so shocked. I'm like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? And so I started researching even more and more. And basically, it said if you're with somebody that is controlling you or having power over you or manipulating you, kind of controlling your whole life, you're walking on eggshells all the time, then that could be abuse. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm being abused. All these years, I had no idea because he never laid a hand on me or my kids.
Wow.
And I had always believed that when you watch the news and things, it's usually about domestic violence is if a woman is beaten.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I thought, of course I'm not being abused. He's not hitting us, right? And so once I figured that out, I still stayed for about 2 more years and just kind of secretly went to a counselor online. And thankfully, she was so good. She never told me, you need to get out of that and leave. She waited for me until I was ready. And finally, I had the last straw. And my kids and I escaped one morning when he left for work. And it was really scary because I thought, what if he turns around? What if he forgot his phone? What if he turns around for whatever reason? So we threw just a few items in the car and we left. And we went to another city, got an apartment, and I just left him a little note on his pillow So I knew he was going to be really upset when he came home. And so that's kind of my story. And then I had to kind of navigate what to do after leaving
Yeah.
because there's not usually a manual for that, right? It's usually, oh, get out. Oh, now you're so good. Great. You left. Awesome. Now you're good.
Yeah.
And that's not the way it is. So there's a lot of healing, a lot of work you have to do. So that's why I wrote my book, The Survivor Revolution: Reclaiming Your Life After Abuse, so I could help others that have been in abusive relationships to know what to do, what to expect, red flags to look for, things like that.
Yeah. I find that so interesting. How did your church family respond to all of this? Did you take some of your concerns to your about your husband to your pastor kind of in advance? What was that conversation like?
Yeah, it was really interesting because we loved our pastor. He loved our family. He loved me, our kids. He loved my husband. And so I'd been going to him and talking to him about issues in our relationship probably for 10 years or more. And I just come in sobbing. And I'm like, this is going on and this is going on. And I don't know what to do. And I'm at my wit's end. I just don't know. And every time he would just say, Tanya, you need to work on your communication with your husband better. And I was like, okay, I think like there's more to it than that. But obviously, he hadn't been educated about abuse.
Yeah.
And so I don't fault him so much, but it was kind of hurtful to keep hearing that. And then after we left, he sided with my husband because he was so close with him. He believed everything that my husband shared and not really what I was experiencing. So that hurt a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. In retrospect, what are some things that you kind of wish your pastor had been able to recognize, been able to understand? How could that have gone differently?
I think if he had been educated about different types of abuse, that there's emotional abuse, psychological abuse, there's financial abuse, spiritual abuse, sexual abuse, all different kinds besides physical. I think he would have been able to see the red flags and things to look for. I mean, at one point, I was suicidal and I just went to a place and checked myself in for like 2 weeks. And
Wow.
at that point, I still didn't know it was abuse, but he still kind of supported the family and had the kids come over for Thanksgiving because my husband was working and things like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that
At
was,
what point was that in that 18-year timeline?
I think the kids were about 5 and 6. So it
Mhm.
was pretty early on. And I knew it was because of our relationship. He had said some awful things to me one morning, and I was just like, oh my gosh, my husband is thinks I'm crazy, and he's telling me my family thinks I'm crazy, all my friends think I'm crazy. And I was like, wow, what's the point if everybody around me is thinking this and I'm just crazy? And so
It must
I
be
felt
true.
right, right. Especially my family and friends. I was like, wow, I just felt so hopeless and helpless and just, ugh, there's nowhere to turn to if everybody is thinking the same thing. But
Yeah.
he's just very good with his words and very manipulative towards other people and our family. So I believed it.
Wow. So I'm so intrigued by first taking the quiz and then like that kind of shifting in your realization. So
Mhm.
tell me a little bit more about that awakening between the time that you took the quiz and you're like, oh, and the
Mhm.
time you really started to seek out and locate the counselor that ended up being so pivotal for you.
Okay, sure. So, like I said, I noticed that there were bad things in our marriage that the kids and I were scared a lot of the time of how he would react. And so we kind of lived like a separate life with us three. And then when daddy came home, we just shouted it out, Daddy's home. Go do what you're supposed to be doing. You guys stay away from him right now. I'll see how his mood is, make sure he's okay, and let you know whether to come out or.
So,
So we knew things were going on. So when I took the quiz, I was still surprised that he was all of those things and that all of those things could be harmful to us. But I wasn't so surprised that he fit all of them just because I knew there were so many bad things going on. But after I did my research, I decided I looked up things and I saw that there was a national domestic violence hotline. And I thought, maybe I could call them and see if what I'm going through is really abuse, just to double make sure instead of just going off of some quiz on psychology.com,
yeah,
right? And so I called them and I was glad that there might be somebody to help me, but I was kind of scared about what they would say if they might say, "No, that's not abuse because he doesn't hit you." And so I got on and I was very, very timid. I was very scared. And I kind of explained everything that was going on. And I just said, "Is that abuse?" And they were just so kind. They're like, "Yeah, that's abuse." I was like, wow. So in 18 years, I was finally validated of everything that I was going through. And that was, I think that I felt seen, I felt heard, I felt not crazy. And so that gave me the courage to think, okay, now I know what it is. Now I can help it. And so at that point, getting into a marriage and being a Christian and everything, I never, ever, ever wanted to be divorced. I never planned on being divorced. That was not in my vocabulary. A lot of people think when somebody leaves for abuse, they're like, oh, well, they weren't serious about it when they got into it. They were probably like, oh, if it goes bad, I'm leaving. No, not at all. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to work on this. He can change. I believe that God can work on all of us. We all can change. I can forgive. We can go to counseling, all these different things. And so I thought, okay, let me work on myself first, right? If I don't work on myself, it's not going to work. So that's when I started getting the counseling.
yeah, yeah. So I love this. I love this conversation so much.
Mhm.
But tell me a little bit about those 2 years that where you were learning, where you were attempting to kind of restore and bring healing into your marriage. What were some of the things that maybe you were doing or saying, and what kind of was your husband's response? And then what ultimately led to you just saying, this is the line and we have to go.
Okay. Yeah, good point. So, yeah, like I was saying, I thought, okay, I'm 50% of this marriage, right? So I need to work on me. And so as I worked with my counselor,
Did
I
your husband
tried,
know you had a
mm,
counselor?
I'm sorry?
Did your husband know you were seeing a counselor?
Oh, no, 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 no. He would have been furious if he knew I was talking about him.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I did not let him know. I didn't bring up anything about the narcissism or abuse or anything that I was looking into.
yeah,
And so, yeah, she just kind of helped me along, like, how do you feel about this? And just kind of working through my own emotions of how is living with him affecting me. And I just kept saying, oh, but he's such a good guy. I love him. He's such a good man in his heart. He had a hard childhood and he's been through a lot of things. And the way he grew up, some of these things might just be normal. That's how he was treated. And so I can't be too hard on him because that's just normal. It's repercussions from his childhood. And she helped me see things like, okay, that's very kind of you, but you still need to be treated with love and respect in a relationship, no matter how somebody else grew up or how what things happened to them. And so I really, really had big hopes that if I go to counseling and then maybe we can go to marriage counseling together and we can make this all work, right? If we work on the little things. So I tried to be like more compassionate and more understanding and things like that. But as I worked with the counselor, I would, I remember telling her one time, I'm like, but he's my best friend. And she's like, okay, tell me about how he's your best friend. And I thought there and I looked, and I'm like, yeah, and I thought, well, he listens to, no, he doesn't listen to me. He's always there for, no. And I was like, okay, maybe he's not my best friend. And that was a rude awakening. You just have these feelings of being together for 18, 20 years. And you're like, of course, they're your best friend. And then some things would come up with the kids. And I was just like, wow, I don't know if this is best to keep them here or to leave with them. So I asked both of my kids, I said, are you okay living here with daddy or do you want to leave? One of my kids said they wanted to leave. I asked the other one and they said, I know how to deal with him. I know how far I can push it. I was like, okay. So then I was split. I'm like, ugh, one of my kids wants to go, one doesn't. I'm kind of in the middle. I want to keep them safe, but I'm not sure if it'd be better to come or go. So that's kind of where I was at. And then the final straw was one day when he was just lecturing and just being so verbally and psychologically abusive to my child that my teenage child was just bawling their eyes out, just crying like uncontrollably, where they're like, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And teenagers, they can usually handle themselves in situations. So I thought, he is hurting my kids so much more deep than I ever realized. And so after that happened, I went into my child's room and I said, we are leaving. I said, you never have to go through that again. And I am not ever going to put you through that again. I was like, I'm so sorry that we've stayed this long. I said, do you want to go? And they're like, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that's it. That was my final straw.
Yeah. Was that the child that did want to leave previously?
It's the one that didn't want to.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that was finally enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Okay, I don't, I'm always so fascinated when we talk together. I don't want to forget to make sure that the audience understands why you decided to write The Survivor's Revolution.
Hmm.
Help me and help the audience kind of understand what you wanted to bring to your audience, to other survivors, to be able to help them maybe bypass some of the roadblocks and obstacles that you endured on your journey, not just out of the house, but into stability from that point forward.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so I believe if I had been educated about abuse ahead of time, I don't think I would have even married him
Mm,
because there were definitely signs before that. But I I don't know what you say. I just care very, very deeply about people.
yeah.
And so I see their heart, I see their goodness. And even if there's things around it that aren't so good, I'm like, no, that is a good person. I
Mhm.
see them and I give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I just went with that. But I thought, you know what? I've been in this marriage for 18 years and I had no idea I was being abused. I'm like, how is that possible? Nobody said anything. Nobody talked to me. Nobody educated me about that. Not my family, not my friends, not in college, not neighbors, nobody. And I thought, if I can share what I've been through with other people that are in the same situation, hopefully they can get out sooner and not have as much trauma and as much pain and as much struggle as I did. So if it helps even just one person maybe to get out after 2 years, oh, that would be a miracle. And that was my main reason for writing it. And so in writing it, I share some of my experiences and things that they might see that they might not see as abusive, maybe just as an unhealthy relationship, but not necessarily over that line into abuse. And also things that they might feel or think. after they've come out of it or if they're in it, like, oh my gosh, I want to go back to them now because they're going to counseling and they said they've changed and they've repented to God and they're ready to take me back. And I believe them and I go back 5 times, 7 times of going back is the average for people that have been abused. And I didn't know this at the time. I just kept going back and believing it. But then eventually it would always get bad again. And I'm like, wow. One counselor actually told me to run the whole scenario through my mind about if I do go back. Like the first weeks might be good, and then things might get a little bit worse. But in the end, if I run it through, I'm like, I'm going to leave again. So what's the point of going back in the first place? So just thoughts like that. The other people might think, oh, I'm so weak, I went back. Or why do I keep going back? But that's totally normal. It's called a trauma bond. And I wanted people to not feel crazy when they come out or weak, but that they've been so strong through it. And even coming out, even if you're going back and forth, you're still strong. So I want them to know what to expect and what resources are out there to help them and just how to heal after getting out, the steps they can take and to keep themselves safe.
Absolutely. I remember you in your book talking about being in a domestic violence shelter for a
Mm-hmm.
period of time. I know you've had challenges, you've had ups and downs. What were some of those early tangible obstacles that you and your kids had to overcome? How did you address those things?
I think some of the biggest barriers that we had were first being believed
Wow.
and second being understood that why did you stay so long? Why didn't you just leave? What was your problem? I mean, if you're being treated so bad, what are you stupid? Why didn't you come out? So just having that understanding of people and helping them to understand and knowing that some people would give you a safe space to be able to come out. That was very helpful. Something else was when I came out, I didn't know who I was anymore. We had always done everything around what my husband wanted to do, where we went out to eat, what we did every day, what we did on fun days. And people said, what do you like to eat? I don't know. And they said, what are your hobbies? What do you do for fun? I'm nothing. I just couldn't find it. And so I was like, I don't know who I am. I lost myself in that relationship. And
Wow.
so that was something that I had to work on and just taking little tiny steps like, okay, do I like that? And trying to find my voice again and learning to take the steps to trust myself to make my own choices, to have my own autonomy. And that was really hard
Yeah.
because I hadn't had it for so long.
Right.
But and helping my kids as well to get all of us into counseling, first of all, to help us through it, but also to navigate how some friends might not believe you anymore and might leave because they believe him, or some family members might try to help, but they're actually hurting because they don't know what to say and they don't know how to help. Like, why aren't you over this by now? You've left, get over it. And I tell people that I think going through abuse and trying to heal from that is similar to losing a loved one. You would never go up to someone that lost a child and said, are you still mourning about that? Get over it. Your kid died like 5 years ago. What are you still doing? And same thing, you would hopefully people wouldn't come up to somebody that's struggling with healing from abuse and say, that why are you still struggling with that? So just like in mourning the death of a child or someone close to you, 10 years down the road something might trigger you and you just have an awful day, you're just crying, you're panicking. And that's the same thing with mourning a child. You might drive by a place that you used to go with them and it's just traumatic to you. And so there's no timeline for getting over it. Basically, you're going to heal in your own time and in your own way, and people shouldn't judge you or push you to heal in a certain way or by a certain time.
Yeah.
So I think that was good for me to learn
Yeah.
to be able to give that grace to others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So how much time has passed since then?
We left about 4 years ago now.
About 4 years. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So have you found I'm assuming in a new church, the roots of trust, of understanding, and of support? Have you found that in a new place?
Yes, yes. I am in a wonderful church and congregation right now. It's really funny because most of the people in my neighborhood are more elderly. And so I was a little worried thinking, oh, they might think kind of old school and not accept our family and things. But it's been like having 100 grandmas and grandpas around you, and they've been great. They've embraced us and leave little treats on our door and
Oh,
just
that's
cook
sweet.
cook meals for us and invite us over. And yeah, they've just been there for support. Oh, if you want to talk, we're here.
Yeah.
If you just want us to listen, just call, come over, anything. They've been so supportive. So it's like night and day from the other one we were in. So
Good,
it's been
good.
good.
I'm glad. I'm glad.
Yeah.
So bringing it back to our listeners of our conversation,
Hmm.
many of them are church leaders. Whether they're in an official capacity or simply a leader in their local church. They're very mission minded, very service minded. We have
Hmm.
nonprofit leadership that follow us and everything. But the overarching common denominator is that we are Christians who are passionate about helping those who are hurting. And
Hmm.
so through that lens, what are some of the misconceptions about domestic violence survivors that you wish that we as the collective church, the Big C church, really understood better?
I think the main thing is to not judge. I think, as I mentioned before, that people might think, "Oh my gosh, they're breaking up their marriage. God does not want divorce." No matter what religion you're in, but usually that's God wants you to stay together, make it work no matter what, through good, through bad, through whatever it is. But he also doesn't want you to be abused. That's the difference. Yes, you can go through difficulties in marriage, but when that line is drawn into abuse, that's not right. You shouldn't be controlled in your own home. You shouldn't be manipulated. You shouldn't have power being controlled over you where you have no say and you're unhappy and your self-esteem is just in the gutter. And so just not to judge people if they've been in an abusive situation and they want to leave. Is it better for the kids to stay in that situation? Every case is different. I would say no. By getting my kids out of that, they're so much better. When I asked him, when we first moved into our little apartment with no furniture, we didn't have one spoon, we didn't have one fork, we didn't have a bed, we didn't have pillows. We just laid on the floor in our new apartment. And I was like, "How do you feel, guys?" And they're like, "I feel free. I feel safe." And that's what I wanted for them. And so to me, it wasn't most helpful to have them stay in that situation with their abuser. So that would be one thing. The other thing would be to believe them. Out of everyone that I've met that has been abused, it's been true. Like, who would make that up? Who wants to go through the court system and through all the money and the lawyers and all these things? What's the point? They're they're telling the truth. And I think they need someone to listen to them and just believe them. A lot of times, if someone is in the middle of abuse, they might not be ready to leave, but they need to know that someone is there, knows their situation, and you're someone that they can come to if they are ready for help or if they have questions. And they know that you're a safe person and you're a safe place for them. So that's really important as well. I think another thing is to have like domestic abuse, domestic violence survivors come and talk to congregations, to leadership, and let them know what are red flags, what can we look for, or how can we help? What are things that we can do? You probably all know about Maslow's pyramid, right, of needs.
Hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, thank you. And so, like, if somebody has just left and they don't have food, they don't have a place to live, they're not safe, they're not thinking about all the spiritual right now, right? They need those things first. And then when they feel safe, they feel like, okay, I have what I need to survive. Now let's work on my healing. I'm ready to open up to someone. I'm ready to make things better for my family and myself. But until those basic needs are set, I could care less. I was just laying in my room depressed for months. I'd call either the domestic violence hotline or the 988, the crisis hotline, every night for 2 months. Because in the middle of the night, when you're all alone in the dark, that's when I would have my worst thoughts. And I think everyone else does too. And so you don't want to call somebody at 3 in the morning. So I'd call these hotlines and they helped me to get through. So again, just having support around, knowing about hotlines, knowing about local resources that can help you in the different ways, knowing that, oh, my pastor is available to help me, whether that's spiritually or with my physical needs. Those things are really, really important.
I definitely can get that. I understand. What are some other things that you've seen that churches, church members, kind-hearted people can really do if they come across someone like you move into the apartment next door to them, or you start attending their church. What are some practical ways that the church body can really come alongside you and your kids?
I think when we come out of that kind of situation of abuse, we're numb, we're frozen. We don't know what to ask for.
Mhm.
We don't know what to do. We're just in a whirlwind of just in survival mode and I need help. I feel awful. I don't know what to do. And I didn't feel like talking to anybody. My sister even flew out to come and be with me, and I barely even spoke to her for that week. I was so grateful that she was there. So I think if people in the congregations can reach out to them, not just saying, "Oh, we're so glad you're here and hope you're doing well." Okay, that's nice. But look and try to see in their lives what it looks like they need. Oh, they're going to an empty apartment. Do you guys need some beds? Oh, yeah, that would be great. Do you guys have enough food for your family right now? No, we don't. Okay, we have a food bank. We have our church supplies food every Friday, and you can drive through and get this. Do you have a way to work? Are you do you feel safe at work? Do you want me to come and meet you in the parking lot so your ex doesn't come find you? Are your kids safe at school? Do they need some friends in this new area? I have kids. Why don't we get them together? Things like that. If they can just see, oh, I'm coming to help you with do your dishes. If they come over and notice that your dishes haven't been done in a week, just don't make a big deal about it. Just be like, "Oh, hi, I'm over here. I just wanted to come visit you. Oh, I'm gonna do your dishes while you just sit there and relax. Just be proactive and try and see what they need and do it even if they don't ask for it."
I think that's really interesting. I feel like that's a level of knowing someone, of getting to know someone that
Hmm.
many of us churchgoers don't do for anyone, certainly not a new person. I feel like
Hmm.
in a lot of ways that probably was more like what the church looked like 50, 100, 1,000 years ago. But
Hmm.
when we lived very differently, more community focused, but especially us in the West, we in the US, we just don't involve ourselves in
Hmm.
other people's lives to that degree. But it sounds like that is what would be really helpful.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And even if you just see somebody, if you even hear there's somebody new at church, even if they're not there on Sundays yet, maybe just sending somebody out to maybe introduce themselves, and you can kind of sense that they're struggling somehow. You might not know about abuse, but there's something going on. Let me take them out to lunch and maybe build a relationship with them, and maybe they'll open up when they're ready.
Yeah.
Just sensing that they're just having a hard time.
Yeah. Just paying attention.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Um, So of course here on the podcast, I'm an expert in trauma, and so I'm constantly talking about trauma informed responses, about how trauma affects brain development and why people do the things they do, why you're numb in those early days after you've left the relationship, why
Mhm.
sometimes people stay or go back, and all of those things are deeply rooted in the effects of the trauma that you've experienced.
Mhm.
And of course, I know that you've also gone through some schooling, some education since all of this happened, so that you can begin offering therapy and support in a trauma-informed way, not
Mhm.
only from your personal experience, but also from the educational perspective and really the understanding of it all. So kind of looking through it through that lens of really of the brain science, of the education, of what more as a organizational focus. What are some things that kind of stand out to you in how we could make our churches, our faith-based nonprofits, a little more trauma informed, a little more trauma aware, so that we're applying some of that more consistently?
Mhm. I think it would be great again to have a class or have speakers come and speak about trauma in different situations. It doesn't even have to be just abuse, but that how it can last for a long time. It can build up, as you can have CPTSD as well, which is the complex
Yes.
PTSD that can build over time. Whereas if someone goes to war, it could be normal PTSD because that was such a traumatic experience. So there's different kinds, and just to understand that it's not going to be fixed with the flip of a switch, right? It's trauma. It's not just, oh, well, you went through a hard situation. There's lingering effects like that. In some of the studies that I read about in my education, they said that people that were psychologically or emotionally abused had a lot higher rate of getting PTSD than those that were physically abused. And that one struck me a lot because that was my situation, right? And when you tell people, even doing a podcast like this or something, and say, my husband never touched us, and people are like, oh, then it wasn't so bad for her. They weren't hit. So, I mean, she kind of knows about abuse, but if she wasn't violently attacked, then she's okay. It wasn't as bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm trying not to interrupt you, but
No, it's okay. It's
it
okay.
just but that reminds me of a lot of our clients here at the maternity home, that same kind of internal focus. Like mine, I am now ashamed because I'm so affected by something that compared to this other situation,
Hmm.
it doesn't compare. Her situation is so much worse, and yet here she is functioning, and yet
Hmm.
mine is seems so much less, and I can't hardly function. And so just hearing you say that, I'm so glad you brought that the research out, because I completely understand what you're saying, but also I see it on a regular basis because we as humans, we like to compare and contrast. And so
Hmm.
was your story worse than mine? Was my story worse than yours? Like, what's
Hmm.
the pecking order? And if I perceive that your story isn't as severe, maybe as mine, then surely I managed to survive. You should be able to as well. And it's just it's so untrue. It's so inaccurate, but
Hmm.
yet it's also so common and so pervasive. So I'm so glad you brought that out, because
Hmm.
that's one of the things that I really want to make sure that our audience receives out of our conversation today, that your story is your story. Your traumatic events affected you in this way. And of course, my audience should be well versed that trauma is not the thing that happened to you, but it's the effects
Hmm.
of the thing that happened to you. The traumatic event occurred, or events, or like you said, with PTSD, complex trauma, the multiple things on multiple levels that affected you. And yet, the trauma is how your brain processed it.
Hmm.
And our brains do what our brains do. So,
Hmm.
you could have one thing. I remember, so here's a random contrast. So
Hmm.
I remember years ago, we had a neighbor who had been in a car accident. She'd been T-boned, and
Hmm.
she had been making a left-hand turn and was T-boned right like in the door frame, like door casing right behind her between the
Hmm.
driver's side and the passenger side.
Hmm.
And it was so traumatic for her that for a while she wouldn't drive at all. And then she would only drive while making, if she could figure out a route so that she only had to make right-hand turns. And then she eventually just said, just let her husband drive her everywhere. So he just became her chauffeur, her permanent
Hmm.
chauffeur. And so I, of course, I don't didn't know her well, and she's moved away many years
Hmm.
ago. But that always struck me, that that one singular effect changed her life so significantly. When that happens to people all the time and it doesn't reach that level. So imagine how varying our response can be to something like what you experienced. And of course, the audience knows that I experienced similar things. I wasn't in that situation for 18 years, but I did experience that for several years. And so I completely understand that feeling of being a frog in the frying pan.
Hmm.
And so I'm just so glad that you brought out that research, and the recognition that we're all going to perceive each other's stories a little bit differently. We're going to see them through the lens of our story, and that's not necessarily fair.
Hmm. Thank you for that. I remember when I first got out, I went to support groups
Mhm.
and it was just like that. Oh, that one went through this and this happened to them and this was different and oh, mine's not so bad or
Yeah.
oh, theirs isn't really so bad. Theirs is horrible and theirs is horrible. But as I've worked with survivors myself over the past few years, every single one of them said, I would rather be beaten black and blue than to have been abused emotionally and psychologically. Every single one. And that includes people that were experiencing physical abuse because they all said, I can heal from that. My body will heal. But the other one stays with you. And I just thought that was very, very interesting that whether they were physically abused or not, every single person has told me that.
Yeah.
And so I think that that shows that trauma is trauma and abuse is abuse.
Yeah.
There's no better, best.
Exactly. There's no good kind.
Right, right.
So as we kind of are heading in towards the end of our conversation today,
Hmm.
One of the verses that keeps running through my mind is Psalm 34:18 that talks about how the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. How do you feel like your relationship, not so much with the church,
Hmm.
but with the Lord Himself? How do you feel like your relationship with the Lord was affected both maybe negatively to some degree as well as positively through all of the things that you've experienced?
So I have always been very close to the Lord. I've always studied my scriptures. I've always prayed. I've always gone to church. And, but when those things happen, like I said, you're looking for your basic needs to be met first. So I don't think I stopped, but I would be having panic attacks or I'd be triggered and just crying uncontrollably and different responses going on. And sometimes that wasn't my first response was to pray and ask for help. But eventually, every day, I did need the Lord's help. And that is how I got through. There's no way, just with my physical self, I could have gotten through that by myself. I mean, He brings people into your life that you're like, oh my gosh, that was just what I needed. Or He'll lead you somewhere in the Bible to read something. And you're like, oh, that's just what I needed. Or He'll just give you that peace or that guidance. I remember it was a few years before I left, and I was at a teenage girls camp to try just, it was a church camp. And so I was one of the leaders to go. And we had this kind of like this spiritual time. And they just said, okay, everybody take your journals and just go off a little ways, not too far, but go off a little ways, find a nice quiet spot in the woods and just pray and just connect with God and ask Him what He wants for you and just have a conversation basically. And I remember praying at that point, and I felt very, very strongly the feeling that you need to go and be a high school teacher in order to support your family. And I was like, wait, what? And I'm like, support my family. I'm married, I have a job, we're doing good. But it was so strong that I immediately went home after the camp and started looking. I just told my husband, yeah, I feel like I'm supposed to be a teacher. And he's like, okay. And so I was able to get the teaching degree. And I was able to support us after we left as a high school teacher for the years that we were still in that state.
Wow.
So that was kind of a guidance and a blessing that the Lord blessed me with of that foresight. I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know we were going to be leaving. I didn't know anything about abuse at that point yet. But, and so that just gave me the peace all the way throughout the whole process, knowing that He sees me, He knows what's coming, and He's got me. And He's led me and guided me along the way just like that and many many miracles,
Yeah.
so He's gotten me through.
Wow. I love that. I love that so much. It's so funny. I'm constantly amazed, which I know this is gonna sound so embarrassing to say out loud, but I am constantly amazed at how good God is and how carefully orchestrated His plans are for us.
Mhm.
Even though I know that, right? I teach that. It's not like I'm ignorant of that, and yet He also still never ceases to surprise and amaze me with His goodness and His foresight. So I love that. I'm so glad.
Thank you. Yeah, my ex-mother-in-law, she would always say God is always on time,
Yeah,
and I was like,
true. But boy, does He make you sweat sometimes.
yeah. Not my timing that I would like, but
Exactly. Well, tell me a little bit about how you hope that the Survivor Revolution has has affected its readers and how you want to see it really help transform lives. And then I know you also have a coaching program on the back end of that. And so
Hmm.
tell us a little bit about that as well.
Okay, sure. So I named it the Survivor Revolution because I feel like there's so much change in communities and society that we need to make to help people that have been abused. So, first of all, is to help prevent it in the first place,
Yeah.
which is education, helping people recognize red flags, whether that's teenagers, kids in college, every age. They need to know this early on and not make the subject of domestic violence or domestic abuse or suicide, all these things taboo. Talk about it, make it okay so that people that are in it can just outwardly say, I think I'm going through abuse or I'm feeling suicidal in the middle of this relationship and I don't know what to do. Just to make it a safe thing and more common and normal and not so, oh my gosh, she just said she's abused. Oh man, what am I going to do with that? Just to make it where it's common to talk about. The revolution is also about helping those that are in abusive relationships, also those that may be in relationships and don't know that they're in abusive relationships, like I was. I didn't know what's the difference between just an unhealthy relationship or abuse. And yeah, a lot of things for this revolution. But also, once you come out, how do you get help? Where do you go? Who do you talk to? What can you expect? What is the path to healing? How long is it going to take me? And just having the guidance and the help. And I think it's also for people that have family or friends in abusive relationships, or the audience here, church leaders and the community organizations that are there to help, to know how to help and to understand them better and to actually offer what they really need, whether that's spiritual, emotional help, physical help. I remember when I first went to my, what they call it, my caseworker, right? At the domestic abuse place. And they helped with so many things. And then I went home and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how we're going to pay rent. And so I Googled it online and they said, oh, yeah, there's organizations that can help you maybe for the first month or two. And I was like, oh, really? And so I went back to my caseworker and I said, are you guys able to help me with rent for maybe like a month? And they're like, oh, yeah, we can help you for 2 months. But they never brought that up. I didn't even know that was an option. And what a blessing that would have been if I had been told that up front. A lot of education, a lot of helping. But yeah, my hope is that we can help to prevent abuse in the first place and also better support those that are in it or questioning or have come out to get the help and healing that they need and deserve.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you've been through it like I have, because I'm a survivor, I think they are the best resource you have because I don't think other people can really understand it fully. They can understand to a point, but unless you've been through it, I have friends that have been through it and they just come and say, Tanya, today, this and this and this. And they said, I know I don't have to explain it any further to you. You understand. I'm like, yep, I get it. I get it. And I try to tell other people, and there's like, but I'm in no way taking away that I feel like everybody that's been through something also needs counselors or therapy and guidance, coaches, whatever it is. What I offer is a lot of it is online just because I know we can reach more people, is helping to guide people through it. And I also have a membership online where people can get in and have support groups, and it's kind of more accessible than a counselor. Like it wouldn't be just like the 1 hour a week. We'll have master classes, we'll have the support groups, We'll hook you up with a buddy that can be your accountability buddy so you're not going through it alone. And just Q&As, having somebody there like the whole way to walk through this journey with you to healing.
Yeah, I love
So that's
that.
basically what we offer.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I know that's got to be so rewarding for you to kind of give back, to pay it forward into
Hmm.
these other women's lives. But it's also the rewarding on the other side for those people who don't have anyone else to turn to find that support,
Hmm.
that validation, that encouragement forward that you struggled with in the beginning, and then as you kind of found your grounding, found your people who would be able to offer that. I know it has to be such a blessing to the people that you work with.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely. And
Yeah.
it blesses me too, because when I did get out of the relationship, again, I felt God speaking to me, and He just said, one of the reasons you went through it is so you could help other people. And I thought, wow, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to use what I've learned and what I've been through to help others.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
can I
Absolutely.
make one quick point, real quick?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think that only women are abused,
Mm,
but there are so many men
yeah. True.
that go through it as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're scared to come forward because of judgment. They think people are going to be like, you let that little bitty woman abuse you? Are you, what are you? Are you weak? Are you not taking control as a man? And things like that. But if you think about abuse, can anybody be controlled? Yes. Can anybody be manipulated? Yes. Can anyone have power over you? Yes. Can anybody be in a situation where they're scared and walking on eggshells? Yes. Does it happen overnight? Usually not. Like you said, the frog in the pot. It's usually a slow process. Can that happen to men and women? Yes. So it's not so outrageous to think no matter the size or age of the woman that might be the abuser could be controlling a 6 foot, 250 pound man. I know people like this. I have friends that I grew up with, and they're in that situation now. They're basically being held prisoner. And I have another friend whose child is in that situation right now, their son. And so it's there. So don't disregard any men also that you might see signs if you're out with a couple or something. And if the man always is looking at the woman before they speak or making sure it's okay, or if you learn the signs, the red signs of abuse, make sure to look for it also in men. It's not as prevalent, but it is very prevalent, a lot more than people think. So
That's a great point. Now, in your community though, is it women only? Do you include the men as well? Do you have two separate groups? How do you handle that?
it's for anyone,
Okay.
anyone that's been abused. It's not only women.
Oh, okay. Okay. I
Yeah.
didn't. That's awesome.
Hmm.
So I know we'll have the links to your book in the show notes below the video. Is there
Uh-huh.
anything else that you really want to share with the audience? Anything that maybe we haven't gone over or just kind of neglected to focus on that you want to make sure the audience hears?
I know at my church something that was helpful was they had, it was maybe like a 12-week class or a 12-week program, and we met maybe an hour on Sundays. And it was kind of like a little support group, and it didn't specifically have to be any certain issue. It could be abuse, it could be any different thing, but it was basically about spiritually learning how to use the Lord in your life for whatever trial you're going through, about having faith and trusting and taking those steps to get closer to the Lord so that He's more in your life. And it was amazing. It was so helpful. So maybe if people in churches could set up something like that, even if it's just like a one time thing, or but it connects other survivors of difficult situations, just to get that extra boost of God and that spirit of peace and hope and, strength to keep moving on from week to week. Because a
Yeah.
lot of times support groups out there or not always spiritually led.
Mm.
So that was really helpful.
Yeah, I love that. Did you guys go through a specific book or curriculum?
Yeah, they did have a little book about it. I don't remember what it's called. Sorry.
Okay. If
But it was kind of like a workbook and a manual thing. Like, look up this scripture and let's talk about this today and write down your thoughts about what we talked about. And yeah, it was just really individualized for each of us. But you felt the power of camaraderie there with other people, and you could share if you wanted to, and you could just stay silent the whole time if you wanted. So it was a very safe place.
Good, good. I love that. I love that.
Thanks.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the Rescue, Rebuild, Restore podcast. I know this has been such an interesting conversation for the audience. It's definitely one that's very, very common throughout the US, throughout the world, really, but throughout the US, throughout our churches. And yet, as you've said already, goes overlooked, goes under discussed, or with the color of blame or shame or guilt or things like that. And so I'm just really grateful that you have been so brave to share your story, not only on the podcast, of course, but through your book and through your life's work as you support all of these others who are kind of following in your footsteps, looking for healing and looking for stability. And I really want you to know that I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much, Suzanne. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on. And again, for our listeners, the link to Tanya's book is going to be in the show notes right below this. And we're so grateful for Tanya for her presence. And if you're interested in reaching out to her more directly, if you're interested in learning more about her community, then that's also in the notes below. And so I really highly, highly encourage you to reach out to Tanya because she's a fantastic, fantastic resource. Thank you
Oh, thank
guys
you
so
so much.
much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank,
I'd be glad to help in any way that I can. So,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We will see you guys next week on another episode. Have a great week. Thank you for joining me on the Rescue, Rebuild, Restore podcast. I pray this episode has equipped you to serve with greater clarity and compassion. If you're ready to go deeper, grab a copy of Rescue, Rebuild, Restore Compassion That Works on either Amazon or at rescuerebuildrestore.com. And while you're there, you can also join our Rescue, Rebuild, Restore Compassion Collective.